At 5 p.m. Would the secretary please read the roll?
Mike Collin.
Here.
Mike Hackney.
Here.
Greg Burmeister.
Here.
Rebecca Matano.
Here.
Eileen Madden.
Here.
Patrick Murray.
Here.
Mark Slocum.
Here.
Don Matika.
Here.
Roland Kiefer. Harvey Schweitzer.
Here.
Statement of public notice.
Meeting was noticed in accordance with public meeting laws.
Approval of the minutes of the October 5th meeting, 2015.
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Corrections, addition, discussion? On hearing no comments. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The minutes are accepted unanimously. Open forum. It appears there's no one here from the public.
I would like to ask a question about odor. The site tends to have a little, well, I don't know if it's this one or if it's across the street, but there seems to be more odor in the neighborhood lately. Is that
Don't know, we'd have to talk to.
a topic of?
I did notice that, yeah, I mean, I guess it'll fit.
I mean, it's a local thing more than.
Yeah. But this section was really for non-committee members to make comments. You can bring yours up when we get to that, if that's okay.
That's quite all right.
That'll give Mike some time to think about it.
It was pretty right today.
Yeah.
Today?
Yeah, it's
Yeah, we
pretty
were
right.
extending gas wells today.
Yeah.
Came around like, oh, whoa.
Compliance officer report,
Do you want me to do year-end first or regular? Fine, so.
regular first and then the year end.
Yes, sir. So we had the audit today. It works well to do the audit on the day of the meeting. I'm out here anyway. Does well with mileage costs and so on for the city. Like you said, there was an odor. There was an odor when I arrived. It got less as I was here, or I got acclimated to it. But I really think it got less because I was in and out of vehicles. On the audit, we recorded that the gas wells have been turned off for the extension of one and then turned back on. And additionally, for the first time in close to 3 months, MMSD is drawing its full allotment, or the maximum it can. So that should help to get rid of the odor issue. The wells are being pulled on as hard as safe to pull on them. The gas is being transmitted to MMSD. There's nothing being flared. The other issue for the audit today was the erosion that's occurred. Phase 5 and 6, their south slope, there's a junction point where the closure area 3 ends and the quote-unquote open landfill begins. There's not a really good transition there. It erodes, they've repaired it, it has yet to be an action item. Garbage hasn't been exposed in the erosion occurrences, nor have there been any seeps. Outside of that, the site's been operating rather well. Good daily cover. They're transitioning the access road, which may have some odor when they actually rip up the old road, because they will be removing what's over top of some well-established 4 or 5 years since that road was actually put in place. 7?
Probably closer to 7.
Yeah. So the access road that goes from the south to the north right up to the top, which has been in place pretty much since Phase 6 started to get filled, is going to be torn up in certain portions to redirect it to be able to fill waste over where it used to be.
How much do they have to tear up that road? How deep?
Well, we would just be going after the gravel, so if you've got a foot or two of gravel, that's what we're going after. We've got gas headers that cut across it, so we're not gonna be tearing up the entire road, because we don't wanna interfere with those headers.
Sure.
They're in there, so. Just enough to get the gravel out.
But if they leave the gravel, it'll be a lens, and we'll record that for any future seeps.
Okay.
So will you be able to reuse that gravel at all? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
Back to the odor thing. I noticed that getting out of my truck out here. So.
Well, are the odors that you've noticed Are they during the day, at night? Is it when you're driving? I mean, is it at your home or?
I noticed it at home, maybe Friday and Saturday. But otherwise, it's typically going to work in the morning.
Okay.
Yeah, I usually catch it on 45 when I'm driving by.
And I will say it is on a day that's pretty still. Just the more quiet it is, that's why it's, is it or isn't it?
Did you ever get it by you?
Yeah, I guess I did kind of notice it.
Did you?
With the warm winter, it seems that, you know, I'm outside a little bit more than normal. And I live north in
Mhm.
Champions Village, so, was it within the last week or so, I thought, oh, wow. that-
Yeah, last week it was really right for, and I can't remember which day it was, but it was,
Yeah, it was, I
Yeah.
did notice that when you mentioned it.
We've noticed it over towards the lake also.
really,
Yeah.
they're
and-
way out.
Yeah.
Well, you live
Well,
on- you
and
live
we're,
down Ryan Road, don't you?
yes, we're at the
Yeah.
foot of Ryan, you know, and every now and then you go out in the evening and also, wow, there's something sweet out here, and it's, you know, a little bit of the smell.
Well, from time to time, we've had problems with freezing. And we've got a sump that's located on the south end of the site, that froze up on us, so we lost vacuum to the portion of the hill. And when I say we lost vacuum, I'm talking 2 days max. And generally, it happened over the weekend too. You know, so that Monday when the tech came back in, we were able to thaw out the sump, and then we got vacuum back to that portion of the hill. But it's been, what had happened twice so far maybe this year, if that.
Yeah.
You know,
2 times,
but
yeah.
the longest time I recall it happening was 2 days, you know, and after that, we had it repaired. The amount of gas that we sell to MMSD doesn't matter, because whatever they don't take, we're burning. The key is to keep full vacuum throughout the whole system.
Yep.
And that we've been able to do, except for the one time when we had the sump freeze up on us, so. If the odor is a gas, you know, it's a little different than, to me it is,
Garbage.
than garbage.
Mhm.
So, I don't know which one you know, is it more of a
The odor I
garbage
caught out
sweet?
here tonight was, I would call it gas. It's
Yeah.
old garbage.
And
It's
what-
6 months old garbage.
And what you got today probably was gas, because we were extending caisson wells, and those are extended 200 feet down underneath. And we essentially have a 3-foot diameter hole that's open to the atmosphere while we extend this, which takes several hours from the day. So that happened from about 8 AM today, and it wrapped up about 4. So
Okay, when was the last time you did that?
race caissons,
Fall,
I was gonna say
last year, fall of last year.
September, I think. Yeah, September, maybe October.
That one you called me about,
Mhm.
that you were going to be doing it.
Did they move that compost pile? Did they turn that?
Yeah, they do, you know, we've got a different compost company in here now too, so they were messing around with that last week,
Yeah.
moving around some piles, so. But
That-
that's a totally different smell, you know. That's why I asked during the day, at night, and, you know, wind direction makes.
Yeah, typically, when I notice it, that it strikes me as going to work earlier in the morning.
Down 8 Mile, or 45?
Going 45, probably right at Chills.
Oh,
That's, at least that's by the time I wake up for sure.
Yeah, we don't know, you know, in this discussion, if that's, you know, exclusively this site, or if it's across the street.
mhm.
But we wanna make sure this site is operating as clean as it can.
I wouldn't mind, or Brett, anytime you wanna call us when you smell something like that, cause then we'll check the weather data too, you know, just to make sure. The main thing is the wind direction.
The wind.
And you're right, when it's still,
Yeah.
Just hovers.
it's tough to say why 45 smells.
Yeah, no, I called you that day, I got the complaint
Right.
about it, yeah.
That was north, right?
Yeah,
And Brett and I took a ride, and
yeah.
I don't know, based on the wind direction that day, it was blowing out of the southeast. You know, and it wasn't anywhere near Champion Village, we drove all the way around the
No
perimeter.
kidding.
So, I mean, you know, some people are more sensitive to it than I would be.
But wind doesn't move in a uniform mass.
Right. No, I know.
It moves in sheets and everything else.
Well, humidity matters, and there's a lot of factors in it.
Yeah.
But don't, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is, call us.
Yeah.
That's best, then we'll get out and take a drive, or, you know, maybe he's doing something that I don't know about that day out there, you know, out in the field, so.
And Mike can't always answer the phone, he answers texts.
I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Well, you know, it's just a concern,
Right.
so I just,
Well, if
yeah.
you keep a record of their calls, we can compare it to the information across the street too, to help define which site.
What day is their meeting?
This Thursday.
Okay.
It's the first meetings of the year always end up on the same link.
Okay.
Yeah, because usually Rolling brings this information back and
Right.
forth. But you can sort of do that, but you're in a different position.
Yes.
Yeah, but I certainly have the freedom to use the odor complaints at both facilities to map out
Yes.
the likely source and so on.
Yes.
And we have a very well-structured odor complaint system across the street. Not saying this committee lacks the ability to set one up, but there's never really been the need.
Right.
The host agreement says that all complaints go to the clerk. And if somebody calls the clerk about the landfill, they take the number and then they call me. And by the time I've called somebody who wants to just make a complaint about an odor, they're no longer really interested in complaining. So we didn't have any this year. Last year, I think we had 3 total where somebody called the clerk's office. But if you call Mike, we should make sure that we start some sort of record keeping of it.
Any calls that you get in, would you keep a record of? And you can do it real easy by just sending me an email. I'll keep the log. You
Okay.
just send me an email saying, you got this complaint.
Sure.
You
Any
guys
kind
do
of
your
complaint?
investigation, but, pardon me?
Any kind?
All complaints?
Anything to do with this committee.
Okay. Dust, litter, everything.
Because it would be good to have one central log and, you know, just queuing up all the emails would make that pretty easy.
Sure. We can do that.
Joe, anything further on this current audit? Annual report?
Those aren't. So, I have to own up that this is obviously built off the boilerplate. And there is a mistake for Mentor, I thought I just redid 2013's. I usually go back to a year ahead of time.
What page are you on?
I'm on page 6 of 8. The odor control auditors reported the presence of off-site and on-site odors. In 2013, there were no occurrences of site odors.
Yeah.
And 15 on-site odors. None of that information is correct. I obviously did not transfer that one particular issue.
Okay.
So I do know that we had no off-site complaints last year, and I will correct that error. So,
You probably need to change the view on this one.
oh, it's a 16? So, yeah, I did that on a check that somebody actually took seriously and didn't accept the payment.
So you're saying that this, the odor control section just.
It's not at all correct.
Okay.
Because I don't have, those numbers aren't exact. I know
Okay.
that those aren't the numbers. So, going back to the memorandum and my boilerplate, 2015 was a relatively clean run for the site. The majority of issues come down to on-site odors, erosion, on-site litter. There was no off-site litter. There were no action items on any issue whatsoever.
Is that the first year that that's occurred?
It's the second year.
Second year.
The last action item was in 2013, it was a seep. There was also a litter action item in 2013, but the seep item was the later one.
Well, that's very good.
The site is actually, operating very well, and now that the closure areas are in place and so on, there's a lot less site to have things go wrong. I mentioned in the erosion section that the closure area has reduced, the closure areas have reduced erosion. 1 and 2 are all nice and green. 3 isn't all green, but it's green enough that when erosion does occur, it's very minimal. So a lot of the site is held in place by these finished products. A lot of the litter is controlled because the majority of the wind comes out of the west and out of the south, and the facility has the east and north protected. The only thing that remains out in the open, it's nice that David's here because I don't have to remind him, is that they still don't have a completed Chapter 35 stormwater permit, which is the only permit they're required to have in the city.
This one's just
Oh, that one's correct though, that's probably why I skipped over it.
Okay.
There hasn't been a rejected load since 2011. It just doesn't happen that much anymore, especially now the foundry sand comes in almost always cold. Majority of rejected loads prior to 2011 was hot foundry loads. And at one point they were allowing them to cool off on the access way, but it became so often that they just turned it in rejected loads and sent the trucks back. And I think that's what changed the operation. Along that line, one of the other things that's changed over time is we don't have instances of trucks out in front of the parking, in front of that gate early in the morning. We used to have a problem with that. So a lot of the ways in which the site operates has controlled the outside effects. Yes. The site will be really impressive when phase 8 is finished. Once the entire phase 7 and 8 are one bottom side of the Tupperware that makes up the landfill, I will rest in peace. The temporary sand basin drives me absolutely nuts. It scares me. I worry about it being overflowed into. But this year that didn't happen. I wrote it up in the past. The 6-inch pump has had problems. It's failed. This year it ran smoothly. The temp side basin's been in great shape. The west slope of phase 7 has been well cared for, so there's no waste in the pond, in the seeps.
Okay, but worst case situation is a whole lot of clean water turns into dirty water.
Correct.
That's the worst case.
That is the worst case because they wouldn't. Once that happens, they don't pump it out, so it has no place to go. It is clay lined. It is very unlikely that there's any fissures or anything after all the operations that have been done. And it did happen in 2014. It was pumped off to treatment.
How much would that be in terms of volume of liquid?
Oh, the current size, that's got to be close to 250,000 gallons. But that would have to be all the way up to the top of the berm and so on. And that's 250,000 gallons is a lot. Even in cubic feet, it's still a lot.
Oh, yeah.
The last time it overflowed, when they figured that out, the pond had 60,000 gallons maybe in it.
Oh, I don't even remember.
Before they did 7B, before they expanded
Yeah.
out, it was a very small sliver up against the footprint of the landfill. Now it has enough volume it can actually wrap around from the west to the south before it would overflow the berm into the actual footprint.
Okay. So that, the risk there is really a huge or a significant cost issue for the landfill.
Correct.
It's not one of contamination.
No.
Okay. What do they charge you for a gallon?
Force main is relatively cheap, but if we had to haul it off site,
12 cents?
yeah, probably up in the 12-cent range.
So then this is the nasty water you're hauling away, so where does it go?
Just to the wastewater treatment plant.
Correct.
Yeah.
Same place it goes when it gets pumped.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just now it's trucking and that's,
Yeah, the trucking's what the cost
yeah,
increases.
that's expensive. Although now it'd be the cheapest with fuel down.
For our centers.
Any other questions, comments on the annual report? You will, obviously
I will make
correct
the
this,
correction.
okay? And once you do, would you send that back out
Of course.
to us by email?
I do have one comment about the actual production. So,
Okay.
our contract with you says that we produce one of these,
Mm-hmm.
and, a disc, and a disc for the landfill. I'm already transferring the data to the city, with another process. This was $380 this year. I can only see it going up. And we're doing so much digitally, you know, I like to save the committee money when possible. I don't know if it's worth the constant escalation when it really is, for the most part, a reprinting of everything we've put up digitally so far. And I don't know where it ends up, so I don't know where it ends up stored, or if it gets scanned yet again and then disposed of.
No.
Okay.
It's, currently, I've been storing it.
Okay.
Okay? And the reason for that is that in the past, storing things like this at City Hall was really questionable. You used to get downstairs, and then it would get shuffled, and then people that weren't familiar with the materials that were in there would go through and do a housekeeping because things got so full. And things would get shuffled out the door that probably shouldn't have been. So,
Well, as long as it's important to the committee, I'll still produce it. I just want you to be aware of the cost.
probably not. Probably it can go with just the CD,
Okay.
because that wraps everything up. It's got, this is basically a hard copy of the CD.
Correct. It would be exact.
As far as I'm concerned, the CD is what we need, unless somebody else would like something different.
Works for me.
A lot easier to store.
Yeah.
And I make it all one PDF file when it's done, so it's not even components, because as it is printed.
That's a monster.
38 meg this time. It still fits on a CD.
Well, sure, for a long
Sure,
time.
just be transmitted electronically.
Dropbox,
Through Dropbox.
yeah, there's some very effective, inexpensive ways to transfer it.
Mhm.
Can't do it as an attachment though.
No.
No, that's what I'm saying. There's definitely other options, but
Yeah.
maybe if it gets loaded onto the city website,
They're all on our.
it doesn't matter, just download it from there, we don't
Right.
have to worry about it.
But you can produce a CD if somebody wants one.
Left and right, and JSA is happy to produce the CD, you know, without cost.
So if anybody would like a CD,
You have to wait till I go out and buy the burner tomorrow. We technoed ourselves right out of the production. My new laptop doesn't have one, and I threw the server away last week. So, but I will be producing them tomorrow.
you don't have a CD or a DVD burner?
No, well, I have component pieces, but I no longer have a box to put them in.
Oh,
So the server goes back to day one when we signed the contract with City of Muskego, and we had 2 clients, and therefore felt we need to have a file share. So the server is now an NAS, and the NAS doesn't have anything. And yeah, I hadn't thought about it, and I went to click eject in my laptop, and there is no DVD drive. Just didn't buy it with it.
we'll make it tough.
Thumb drives, just that would make everything even easier, why
Yeah,
spend
then
the money on a disk drive?
Well, because then I gotta charge my client for the
Oh.
thumb drives.
They're like $3 when I started my.
Yet after the markup, they're like 12.
The issue is, you start getting software, commercial software, and that's still gonna come on CD. Not a whole lot of it's coming
Right,
on.
exactly, yeah. No, we
On
just
thumb drive.
didn't think about it, we haven't had to buy anything new.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, of course I have thumb drives, but we'll have a burner, we'll reproduce it. It's not that big a deal, it's just when I went to do it today, I was really shocked.
And I have bought external burners that you just plug in on a USB port.
Yeah, and I'm told they're very fast.
Mhm.
especially if you get one that's 3.0. Works real well. Any other comments, questions? Okay, status of projects, clay extraction. You've been done, right?
Oh, yeah.
Do you have anything coming up?
There's a possibility that we may have some, but
April, May, June?
probably around April at the earliest,
If it's dry?
if it's dry. That's the key.
Will that go off-site or?
Yes.
Household hazardous waste?
What's your favorite time of night?
Make a subject.
I have one for the landfill crew. Make a sub, maybe? Yeah.
I wasn't
Pass
planning
that
on
down
being-
to the landfill crew.
Let's go to the landfill.
Crew leader.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so this is the way, well, I printed another big sheet.
Yes.
It's better. And I am gonna work on a more simplified version, but it was clear to me that the committee wanted to see all the numbers, and so this is the most simplified way to show you all the numbers that I've found so far. So, I just wanted to give you a really quick rundown of, on the top, the comparison of 14 to 15. So as you can see, and I'm on the top of the data sheet, slide one, on top of the data sheet, 2014 and 2015, the highlighted part, which I think is probably the most important difference that we need to look at. So participation was down about 7%, and that's, I mean, that's not, there's only 380 people, so I didn't think that was bad. And it's kind of our goal to have less people needing to use hazardous waste sites, so I think we're getting there. Unfortunately though, the total pounds collected was up about 1%. So I wanted to say though that too shows me that our efforts are not hindering anybody from safe disposal. I felt like, if we could perform at the same level or similar levels, that the closures and the decisions we've made haven't really hindered the efficiency or effectiveness of the program. And I'm sticking with that. Alright, so total costs were down about a little bit over 11%, so that equated to almost $36,000 in savings, which I thought was a great accomplishment on behalf of the committee and the contractor to get that all done. And then it breaks down everything, going to the very end, looking at cost per household and cost per pound. So the cost per household and the cost per pound were both down. Cost per household was down 3.81, cost per pound obviously down 12.5%, so less participants, but more pounds, so that is the way it came out. And then everything going down the line, this is the next one that says year 2015 box, is just the summary of 2015 compared to 14. And then this is the detailed summary of 15 to the detailed summary of 14, right? And then I also just simplified it a little bit more for those of you who don't care about the data on this fancy sheet. No, I didn't print you guys a color copy, sorry. But this basically just breaks everything that I just said down. I wanted to make some points that, our total 2015 year does include the rental costs from the Muskego site that we pay. So it's $416, a little over that a month. It doesn't include any of our costs to administer the program, which eventually that will start being added in as total programming costs. So I'm working on that. Just wanted to say that when you look at the 2015 budget, we were still about $4,500 over budget, and I didn't want to call a special meeting and make a big deal and close things for $4,500, but it can't keep going over budget. So, I'm gonna have to get a little bit more particular in October if I'm looking at that. When I came to you guys and said, I don't think there's a problem, there shouldn't have been. If you look at 14 over 15 for the November cost, it was double what it was in 14 and 15. So I about fell off my chair when I got the November invoices and realized we were gonna be over budget. So, of course, there was was not a great explanation for that, so we just dealt with it. We just dealt with it. $4,500 was a lot better than the $30,000 last year, so. And then this just breaks down the same thing about cost being down and participation down and how we got to the point of where we're at. So I think the program's making good progress. Lots of good things are happening with it. We're getting within budget. I did wanna mention that I was able to get a little more funding for this year. And we're talking the tune of $6,000 in more funding, but that's just straight for the disposal program. So I got extra funding for the lamp disposal for $5,000, extra funding to pay for the rent for $5,000, so total program budget is about $325,000 for next year. I don't expect to get any more money, period. And if anything, I expect to lose money in the coming years as budgets get tighter. But because we're trying to make an effort, and my case was we have to either fully fund the program or we have to make more changes. And that was my case, and then that, you don't want me coming to you in November every year saying we're gonna be over budget. Either you fully fund it based on these projections or we make more cuts. Thankfully, the full funding came through, and, you know, it's because we have grant funding, we have the landfill funding, we have the municipal cost share, so there's multiple things going into the program which help us. So hopefully next year we just slide through the year, and you know, we've been tracking, so we've been really watching. Don and I are really good friends, so we talk a lot every month about
Come along with
supply
us.
costs and
Yeah.
staffing fees and overcharges, and so he knows we're paying more attention now than we ever have before. I also have the opportunity to do a collaborative purchase of supplies, and I am looking into it. I will keep the committee apprised of any information that I get out of it, but there is a conglomerate group of people working together at the state level, trying to save money on supply costs, and as you can see, supplies are a huge part of our costs. So our supply costs for this year were in the tune of almost $78,000, and that's just like PPE, drums, you know, containers, lab packs, whatever the case may be. And again, it's down 23%, which is great, but if I can take part, I'm on a committee looking at the impacts of a collaborative buying process. The problem is trying to coordinate that to make sure that I have what the contractor needs. I'm not buying over, or they're saying you didn't buy the right stuff. So, you know, just trying to figure out if it's actually worth all the effort is what it comes down to, what the cost savings would equate to, and what possible obstacles and challenges come with that type of situation. So,
Can I interject real quick?
no.
Okay. Oh, I wanted to remind everyone that the Muskego site for supplies, they don't wait until a barrel's full. At the end of the day, everything that's in gets closed up and shipped off.
Yes.
So there's none of the partial barrels left over for the next one, so their supplies are a little higher.
We know that everything that Muskego says has to operate differently because it's out of a private company's operation. So it's like a collection event. So you see the collection events are costly, and so is the Muskego site because it's operated just like that.
Yeah.
Oh, I should also mention, I'm sorry, we are preparing and install new signage at all the sites because there was a little bit of confusion, I guess, this year about site closures. We also, so all of the sites will get new signage with updated hours, updated acceptable materials. We're gonna try to make the signs also more easily changed or able to be edited, I guess we should say. So those are in process. We're working with John, and we're also working with like Dave Jensen at his site to make sure that the signs say what they want, that the size they want, they can handle it, or they install the way that they want it. So that will all go under the program for this year. We have to do it. I mean, the site, what happened in December is Dave Jensen called me, I don't know, the second or third week in December and said, hey, somebody left a bunch of stuff here, you need to call your contractor and pick it up. And I said, no, actually I don't. I'll be nice and I'll call our contractor, but they're not obligated and neither are we. You're obligated to secure your site. In a good faith effort though, I would like to work with you to put a sign up to make sure that that's done. You secure your site and make sure that if there are things left over, you understand it's your responsibility. So we did have a cordial conversation about site security and signage and the closures for the January and December months. So people, I think, are starting to get used to it. We also had a communication error with the towns of Norway and Raymond, that their clerks were not apparently getting information from the committee or from anybody, so did not know any of the changes, and there was some frustration from that area, so we personally called the clerks, got all their information, got them on our PR list. But I'd like to encourage the liaisons for all of the municipalities to make sure that when you get the PRs, you're sharing them with the clerks so that we're sure that the public is receiving the right information and proper messages.
Okay. When you send out a PR from such as hours, holiday hours, is Raymond, Norway, are they on that distribution now?
They are now, so previously it was, the committee was on it because they were to be providing that communication.
Right.
But yes, they are now, I don't want that, I would rather double up on it though than,
Yeah.
than not. And especially because emails change, people don't notify the county, so, especially those municipalities, they're not thinking of notifying the county about changes.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, any help we can get in making sure that everybody's getting the information that we're pumping out would be helpful.
Raymond has
If we're
never
missing
sent
anything,
a
let me know.
representative here.
So, that's
They
all.
haven't?
No.
Questions, comments?
Nice job.
Yes.
Yep.
There it is.
Said Raymond never replaced, they never had anybody come to the meetings. They did over on the other side, but not here.
Yeah, I mean, so it was definitely a concern, so anything that we can do in the committee to reach out, we'll try to make sure we're cognizant of those gaps too, in communication, so we'll try to pay attention.
Well, you get what's sent out for the press releases, right?
I sent it to Racine County, to Julie Anderson,
Okay.
but Raymond was supposed to replace, and they never.
Should we be bugging Raymond about that?
No, I don't think so. I
Well,
don't-
now it's gonna go right through Raymond, right?
It will, but again, I mean, we'll try to stay
She's,
on top of it.
we need really a secondary from the committee. And, yeah, I can pick that up when they come to me, I can pick it up for now, but, you know.
Like I said, we're doing
Like
it.
everybody else, I'm not gonna be here forever either, you know,
Right.
so.
I'll try to stay on top of it.
Does our contractor get all those PRs?
John? Yes. Joe, he's on the committee, so he should be.
He's not on the committee.
No, I mean, but he's part of the list. I gave the list of all the committee.
Okay.
Are
Do
you
you get them?
PRs.
Press releases,
Yeah.
Do you want Joe to get them?
please, yes.
I have never gotten them before, that's probably why.
I thought I said, but I might have said ask committee members.
Yeah.
But no,
Because,
you're gonna get all of our PRs. You're not picking and choosing.
That's fine.
That's
I'm
fine.
quite good. I got that delete key.
I just got one from someone that I did regularly.
Oh, it comes from Waukesha County, not from the city?
Right, Waukesha
Okay,
County.
right, that's, then, yes, I don't get anything from Waukesha County at all, except for, RFPs.
I will add you to the PR list.
We'll find out.
I don't have anything else.
I think so.
You guys don't have redundancy, you can take me back a couple months.
Sure.
Here's your inbox.
Yeah.
Mike, you mind if I go back a minute? I have a question about the landfill costs. Didn't we discover that that was a fixed fee that they were supposed to charge?
We discovered that they were charging us a fixed fee, so they were just charging us, but they were charging multiple sites for these fees without any backup or reporting for those
seems to me that they would use a dumpster for the satellites.
Yes, then they do.
And dumpster fees usually don't have a mileage, so I'm only $1 apart. It just makes me wonder though how that was come to, and I know that the cost for across the street is less because that's part of their lease.
I mean, no.
Brookfield's $311.35 and Delafield's $312.32.
There could have been other things in there.
Okay, it's just, it's odd pricing, $8.16 from Muskego, I don't even know how to get that across a scale.
Well, that's what happens when you get $50 money.
Well, that's just it, I don't wanna be picky, it just seemed a little off.
No, and I.
And I realize it's not, it's more than 2014 by a lot, but it's not a big budget item.
Well, what we learned through this too, and, without trying to be crazy about data, which I am a little crazy about data, as you can tell. We actually took all of the invoices and got them from Dealer, because they only send them to us in hard copy, but we collected them digitally, we exported them into Excel, and we are now working within every single line item on the invoices, because, again, I was looking at those supply costs, and that's what started it, but I could definitely look further into the landfill costs. It didn't raise a red flag to me when I was reviewing the monthly invoices, so I don't know that there's anything, but I have any amount of data from 2015 we could possibly need. Down to the state code.
But does this inconsistency raise a flag? That's the question.
Well, it didn't for me at the time, but it doesn't mean I shouldn't go back.
No, I understand. I used to have a water bucket test for those.
That's why I scrambled to turn mine off when the meeting started. I can't afford the water bucket test.
Okay, anything else on household hazardous waste? MMSD project?
You talking about the plant itself?
I'm talking about gas, anything to do with gas.
Who's your gas guy?
We've been running pretty much normal on our side for the last 6 to 8 months. I mean, the MMSD has had their issues and fixing up, so we give them gas whenever they need it. When they don't, we flare it. So we don't really have any control over that, nor do they tell us when something's wrong. So.
Okay, so it is absolutely seamless between sending to MSD and flaring?
Yep. I mean, there's every once in a while there's a minor hiccup with the equipment faults out here and there, but it's usually easily repairable within a matter of hours.
How often did you lose the flare?
Lose the flare when we need it? Not very often. I think it maybe happened 2, maybe 3 times last year, primarily due to the hydraulic leak inside the valve that was fixed.
Okay. And how long would that be down?
The flare itself, it depends on when it happens, but typically no more than a couple hours at most. And when the flare is down, usually we're always still going to be cycling to the MMSD if we need to, and they're taking partial flows. So I don't think we've ever had, maybe for very limited periods of time this last year where they weren't taking, the flare was down for whatever reason, but it wasn't days at all. It was fixed within a few hours probably. So.
Okay. Electronic recycling?
Going fine?
Yep.
Going good from your end, Dave?
Yeah, I don't know if you want to get an update or.
have to pay $20 for any TV or $5 for any of the cathode ray tube computer monitors, you know, the ones with the big backs on them. But pretty much at most other, through the eCycle Wisconsin program, eligible or covered electronic devices are all accepted. They take many other things, but we try not to advertise it. If it's not a covered or eligible device, as well as appliances will be accepted at all of those collection events. The city is hosting 2 events in May and September. It was the same as last year, so it'll be at the same location. It's the same vendors, and the same months.
Yeah, May 14th and September 10th. Are 2 dates in Muskego. Any resident, really anyone, can go to any event though. So the idea is to have one every month. So if someone really wanted to get rid of that TV, they could drive up to Brookfield or Connewauk or New Berlin, wherever it happens to be that month, and get rid of it. So I think it's a great approach, and I think it's gonna be a good partnership.
So when you said second Saturday of each month, that means on the second Saturday of each month, there's going to be some place having an event.
So, like, for example, in January, City of Brookfield hosted the first event. We had 465 vehicles, almost 200 appliances, and somewhere around 30,000 pounds of electronics. Did you look?
It was a lot.
Yeah, somewhere around 30,000. So again, the need is there, and it is great. And instead of putting the cost on the backs of the communities, we put it on the consumers. For that, City of Oconomowoc is in February, then New Berlin's in March. Heartland is April, and then Muskego is May, and I don't have the rest of the year memorized.
Hey, was that sent out in a PR or something? I wasn't.
Yeah, I didn't get it. We have only been advertising a few months at a time because we did not have all the intergovernmental agreements executed until as of last week. So a PR will go out that will have with the full list, plus it's on the website. So we were trying to only do 3 months at a time, just because of anything can happen, right? And so with the contractor or with the municipality, anything can happen. So we're cautiously walking around advertising, but yes, the full list will be going out in a press release.
Okay, if it doesn't go out in press release, you know, it can be internal.
I can send
So
it.
if the committee gets it.
I can send it to the committee, sure. And again, we just finalized all the details, so, but I will send the committee the list.
Our lawyers didn't help at all, but otherwise it was a smooth process.
Dave and I did a great
Yeah.
job. The lawyer complicated it. But he pushed it through, so everybody in the city should be thanking him, because he got it through committees and council, so.
For Norway and Raymond, there will be no collection days down there, but they're free to use the sites up here, right?
They're always checking their needs.
On a technicality, it's supposed to only be for Waukesha County residents, but we are not checking ideas in the effort to make it efficient when people pull up, and, you know.
As long as it's cost neutral, what the heck?
Right. So we're not going to advertise it as open to anybody, we're gonna advertise it as Waukesha County residents,
Okay.
just so everybody knows that.
But
it is technically open to anybody, yes.
What happens to this drop-off area?
We'll keep it.
Oh, you will?
active for now.
Oh, yeah.
We're just hoping it'll be a little less, maybe they'll get less stuff here, so it'll cost us less money, because our bills are still pretty high here for this site. I'm sure you know that it probably fills up monthly, but.
Once a week?
Wow.
Out of my ditch, right?
Yeah,
Our
and
ditch,
8
yeah.
Mile too, we're collecting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What,
Hopefully this does
$20?
start helping those.
I'll set a little bit.
Secondary collection.
Well, and hopefully the markets get better. I mean, there is some statutory changes to the electronics recycling law in, I think it's in Assembly right now, trying to fix some of the gaps that we were discussing last year as part of why we ended up going this route and why everything became cost prohibitive, essentially to have programs in municipalities, you know. None of us need to necessarily do this, but better to be proactive than reactive when we're dealing with these types of materials, so.
Okay. other questions? Residential drop-off, going well, no
Going well.
problems?
Have you heard any complaints about anything at all?
Nope.
I haven't either.
No more confrontation?
You should really have Julianne stick around for that question.
It's the ones that are here when they're not supposed to be here, Joe.
Yeah.
That she has issues with.
Because Frank's here, I'm going to, just bounce the other two and then I'll go back to Frank.
Sure.
Plan mod issues?
None for the quarter anyway, last quarter.
Okay. Anything anticipated?
I don't, no.
Good. Any issues, property protection, sociological? Obviously, you
I
made all the
believe
checks on
everybody got their
time.
checks.
Okay, now we'll go back to number 6. Well testing for well water protection area.
Last year, December, everything went well. 105 cards were sent out to residents. We received 37. Of that 37, one was a new resident, so it automatically made the list. One was a no, so we ended up with our 35. So everything was fine. One homeowner had a positive, or had 2 readings of positive bacteria. They were notified, obviously, with the letter and the pamphlet we gave them from the DNR. So that we suggested they chlorinate their well and talk to a licensed well driller. We don't have results back for the other, for the laboratory results yet. We just got some preliminary results, and hopefully we'll be finalizing those reports in the next couple weeks.
Okay, on any of the preliminary data you received, anything out of line?
There were about 5 wells, 5 different homeowners that had some very low-level VOCs detected. They were all within the J flag. So they were between the detection of quantification and detection of limit, or limited detection.
Level of
So,
detection,
level
yeah.
detection, so they're very low. And it was the same things that we've had seen in the past. Acetone, things like that, some laboratory contaminants and things like that.
Are they in the same area?
I don't know that yet.
Okay.
We haven't fully gone through and, blazed them out and laid out everything. We're in the process right now of going through the reports and checking with the lab, making sure that, looking at the run times and things like that, and the recoveries, and making sure they're accurate and everything. That's why we bunch all the samples together, so they basically go through the lab together, if you will. We try to do this over a few-day period, so there's no stragglers or, easier to look at the quality control of the data.
Which lab are you using this year?
PACE. It's the same lab. There hasn't been any change in the laboratories. It's the same lab. PACE does the bulk of it, and the lab that does the bacteria is local, only because it's a short hold time, and then we give scheduled pickups a day. They're at Suburban, I believe, right? Don't quote me on that. Yep, Suburban Labs. Yep. They've changed their name recently, but it's the same firm.
Was toluene or dichloromethane found?
Don't recall.
In the J flags, I mean.
Yeah, I
Okay.
don't,
Okay.
I know acetone was, and, cause I looked into that one with the lab just recently, so.
Still floors me on the,
Well, I just wanna match it up with
Right,
across the street,
right.
which we did, they haven't had hits the last 2 years. And with the toluene hit that I know we had, is the guy who likes to do his own car restoration. So
Okay.
he, every couple of years, he does something with toluene and it's a well hit.
So
But I just like to line them up if I can.
out the back.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that think that's the
way to do it.
That's the way to do it, and it permeates the groundwater so quickly. It's like it races to it.
Can you do a retest on any of those wells?
Here, careful.
No, because they were within the J
Drop it.
flag.
Okay.
We felt that it wasn't necessary to go back and confirm. It was in that area of estimation.
oh yeah?
Now, if you found that they were all in the same area?
If we found, right, if we found that they were in the same area, or found that they were significant hits, or the same parameter and a number of things, yes, we would have come back to the lab, we would have called Mark and.
Or if it was in all of them, then it would have been ruled out. Methylene chloride sometimes it's a bottle wash.
Right.
And they wash the bottles with it, and then it should evaporate.
Yeah.
But if you have it in every sample, it's pretty
We did look at the trip lengths, there was also trip lengths and field lengths, and none of that had any contamination, so. It's just a matter of putting it, like you said, laying it out, seeing where the pattern is, and things, or if there is a pattern.
And just to be clear, it's the industry standard, it's not just that Frank winged it with an opinion, I mean, it's backed up with, that's the way the well testing and sampling is done.
And each well, of the 5, only had one VOC detected of the 36 or 38 different compounds. So it wasn't like a whole host of contaminants that were showing up that you would sort of lean or assume something. We call it a fingerprint. It's just one here, one there type of thing. So I think the committee meets in next month or 2 months.
2 months. Yeah.
We'll have everything. The homeowners will be notified, and I'll have more information if they have any comments or concerns, things like that, so.
Okay. Any other questions? New business, we had none. Continuing business, nothing to my knowledge.
I actually have new business I wanna add, I wanna talk about, just kinda throw something out there.
Can we get there then?
Okay,
We'll wait.
okay.
Under other business, review payments made from the community fund. Do you have anything for us, David, or no?
Just the stuff that was sent with your,
Okay,
nothing other than.
okay. Confirm the next meeting date, April 4th.
That plays into my suggestion.
Okay?
Okay, my thought is that we move to quarterly meetings, only because, I mean, this was a really good meeting, but a lot of times we have, it's kind of the same, we review the same things over, and there's not really anything new to talk about. I know we missed December, and coming into this meeting, it didn't really impact anything by not having that December meeting. So my thought was, if we go ahead and have the next meeting in April is scheduled, and then the next one in June, we can fall right into that quarterly from there, so that we stay on track with the year. So it'd be January, April, and July, you know what I mean, right down the line, and still be
Yeah, it would cut
in
out
sync.
2 meetings a year.
Right.
Compared to what we do right now, and this
Right.
last year, we actually cut out one in December
Right,
anyway, so we
right.
were almost there. But anyway, take that home with you, think about it, and in April, we can put that on there as an item of business.
Okay.
And put it on.
I had an item about the paying and so on, billing.
Yes.
JSA Civil Environmental Engineers is changing the name. We're gonna be JSA Environmental, has to do with our office in Virginia. It shouldn't affect the committee at all because I already have all the web pages rerouted and so on. We'll still use JSA for everything. We've got a linked 3-ring logo that's out of Gaelic history, and that's it.
I'm
And my
only,
email will change.
I am only concerned about your state business licensing and things like that.
Well,
Make
that'll
sure
all
you
be
are
renamed.
legit.
Yes, we'll still be legit. Or as legit as we need to be for this community.
Boy, that was a slight.
Listen,
Wasn't that a slight?
We're extra we carry extra certifications for what we do for the city. The fact that we only have audits done by people that are licensed to teach landfill operations in the United States, I thought was a step up, not a slight.
So the new name is good.
Just JSA Environmental. It turns out you have to be a licensed engineer in the state. And Dad doesn't wanna, well, there's 2 problems. I now own 51% of the company, and you gotta be the engineer there. So even if he did take the test in Virginia now, he still couldn't do it. So that's just it, you just can't have engineer in the name. And we can do the DBA in Virginia, but after we started using it, it's easier to answer the phone, it's easier to put a letter. And it's just easier to make it all one thing. So, yeah, it's a simple name change. Like I said, my email will change at some point, but there'll always be the forwarding. So if you use the JSA Civil, it won't matter. We'll still have the JSA Civil webpage. You won't have access to it. It'll all take to the environmental, but you can't leave any of that past name stuff out in the open for somebody else to grab up.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
So it's just gonna be JSA Environmental?
Yep.
Tighten it up a little bit.
And a cute little logo. I wanna go back to the
We used to have this little garbage truck with stuff falling off the back of it, that was our logo.
Yep.
No, we vote based on ownership.
They're taking full-
It goes based on number of shareholders, not on
We
ownership.
get to pay them less money than if they
Right,
were.
trust me,
Yes.
I don't,
You gotta have
that's a
it.
good question.
So.
Then I still have to vote.
Rolly would ask.
Hey, Joel,
Yeah.
since you're losing that very important part of your title, does the rate go down?
No, but the rate won't go up.
I
Roll-
just
Rolly
put
would
that in there
insist.
for Rolly.
It's a yin and a yang,
We've
right?
maintained the same price for the city of Muskego for over 10 years now. And what's funny is, I mention it, the only person who says it is Roland. I mention it at Franklin when we go, because we have to go through the full contract process. They research it. And what's great for them to research is they have it.
So does Rolly show up to all the
Oh,
meetings
yeah.
over there? Yet he slights us.
And you'll have to talk them through Rebecca, because they're real chummy over there on that side.
Oh. Oh.
You realize this is being recorded, right?
Yes, I'm being perfectly honest.
We talked for about 30 seconds, yes. We say hi, we're friends. It's good.
Okay. Any other communications as authorized by law?
I think we're gonna have to start researching Joe's contract and costs to assure that he's providing us the best service that we can get.
Most cost effective.
I'm willing to do that for you. For a fee. Of course.
2.3 hours.
Okay, upon hearing no comments about other business, I'd be looking for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned at 6:04 PM.
What they gonna do with Waxhaw and Hartford?
Oh, my brother does that.
Oh.
Yeah, my brother is into that.